Hey, it's your financial maven, Samantha Besnoff, CPA, and after almost 25 years in the accounting world, I've decided to share my insights and passion about money. Knowing your money and hopefully feeling less stress about your money is what I call being financially empowered. Welcome to the Your Financial Maven podcast. Welcome to the latest episode of Your Financial Maven. So today I'm going to be talking to our entrepreneurs, our small business owners, especially our women-owned businesses. I am so excited because today I have Elizabeth Milian with me, who is a dedicated trademark attorney. She is passionate about supporting female entrepreneurs and women-owned businesses in protecting and monetising their brands. She's also a litigation attorney and the co-founder of a boutique law firm in the Miami area. Elizabeth understands the unique challenges that female entrepreneurs face, and she makes it her mission to provide accessible legal support to protect their brands in the online marketplace. Welcome, Elizabeth. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you, Samantha. I'm so excited to be here as well.
So I'm going to get started with the question I ask all my guests, and then we're going to kind of get into why I have you here today. So what is money?
So I love this question because I think about money on a daily basis. So for me, money at its core is possibility. Money,
I love that.
Choice to say yes to things that are aligning with your goals and your values in life, personally, professionally, and it gives you access to resources and opportunities.
Absolutely. And I think that plays in both personal and your small business, wouldn't you think?
Yes, 100%.
Okay, so I have you here today because I really want to talk about what you do with regards to money and understanding trademarks and intellectual property, especially for women-owned businesses. A few years ago, I actually trademarked Your Financial Maven. I did it on my own. I went to the government site and I did it, and I guess I did it correctly because I got the original trademark. But then I had to do some updates, and I did hire a trademark attorney actually the second time around because I wanted to make sure that it is correct. You know, I'm a CPA. I am not an attorney. I don't know all the laws in that regards. And I have to say that work that you do for businesses is amazing. So is there a simple definition of what is intellectual property? And then what is a trademark?
So that's a great question. Intellectual property is a bundle of protections that is focused on ownership and protecting original creations. And so the two forms of intellectual property that your listeners may be familiar with are copyrights, also trademarks. I don't work on patents. Patents is a separate specialty, but patents also falls under intellectual property. And so with trademarks, we're focusing on branding elements and things that go into branding. With copyrights, we're looking at things like creative output, which might be photographs, writings, songs. So it's fixed in what's called a tangible medium. And luckily, by registering, whether it's your copyright or your trademark, you are gaining access to nationwide protection and certain legal protections that come with that in the event you do find someone who's essentially a copycat and infringing on your work. And that's important. It's important to have.
Yeah, it's very true. And I'd love to know, how did you get the passion to get involved in this and where it's led you from where you began to where you are now?
Sure. So I would say my route to trademark law was not direct. I didn't even know that I wanted to be an attorney originally. Growing up, I thought I was going to be in the art world. I love art. It's still a passion of mine. And I thought that possibly I would be an academic. I wasn't quite sure. But in college, I went to school in New York and I had the opportunity to have various internships. And one of the internships was completely focused on business. And I feel naive looking back. At the time, I thought it was about art, but it was really about business.
But it can be a combination of both because I think that having an artistic mindset, view of the world helps you with businesses on the creative side of things.
Absolutely, it does. But as a student, I didn't quite connect those two things together. I know that you do a lot with talking to people about education and financial empowerment. And growing up, my generation, for whatever reason, we weren't really talking about that yet. I think it's very different now. I have two teenagers. They're much more conversant in money.
Oh, good. Good to know. I'm getting out of the teenage years. My oldest will be 23 in January. My youngest will be 20 in November. But yes, it's important to talk to our kids and to each other, even as adults.
Yes. And so growing up, I think money in that generation, it was still considered a little taboo. Certainly there's a time and a place for certain conversations.
Of course.
I think that there was sort of this idea that talking about money was taboo or it was not to be done. And so I went into college and I was thinking about art in a very specific way. I had a really great internship where the appreciation of art, the art market, was bringing in buyers at a very high level. So famous auction houses can bring in those celebrity pieces of art and attract a certain consumer. And the light bulb went off in my head. And I started thinking about art as an asset class. I started becoming interested in business. So I wish I had your background as a CPA. I wasn't thinking about that when I started school, about that, business framework and the understanding of money.
I agree with you. I think for small business owners out there, even if you didn't go to college, you started your business, or you're in college, or you're out of college with a business, having some kind of business class, whether it's accounting or marketing or something, is good to do. Even now that you might be established in your business, taking courses is so important when it comes to your business.
It's true. You need to know how to read a balance sheet. And it's not a skill that you'll naturally, intuitively figure out.
It isn't. And people think, oh, it comes naturally to you. I had to work at it. I took my classes and learned, and now it's more natural for me. But, when I started back in high school with accounting, I didn't have a clue.
Yeah, it's a real journey, and it's important. It's important to be aware. So I sort of came to law that way. I came through art, I came through business, and I worked for a while. I didn't start law school until I was 30. For me, that was the right choice because I wanted to have a certain level of real world experience. And I think there are benefits to going straight to graduate school out of college, but there are also some benefits to working as well. And so my mind frame was very different. And I graduated into a crazy market. So by the time I graduated law school, the housing market had crashed. And
Ooh, yeah, 2008, 2009.
Yeah, 2008. So,
I remember that real well.
Exactly. And I think it was actually really important for me to see because when I started my career prior to law, we were in the dot-com era, and there was a lot of exuberance. There was a lot of money being thrown around. And intellectually, we knew that was not going to last forever. But there's nothing like going through an economic downturn that lasts for quite a while to adjust you to reality and adjust your expectations about markets change, opportunities change.
Absolutely. I think people need to understand that. We talk about the economy and, COVID, I think also really messed a lot of stuff up. And people just have to take that step back and realize these things have to have the ebbs and flows and ups and downs. You can't keep going up, up, and up without having kind of a reset. I think it's important to know that.
It's so true. And I think you're right. COVID, for, people who were maybe too young in 2008 to remember that impact, COVID was really a new equalizer for all of us. And so trademarks, what I love about IP is that when a business invests in intellectual property protection, you're laying certain fundamentals in place so that when the market can and will change, you can be ready to pivot or say yes to new opportunities. And that's really where I want businesses to moving towards resiliency and opportunity.
Oh, I love that. And as you're working with these small business owners and these women, that empowerment of understanding this, what are the things that when you're working with your clients that you really try to stress when it comes to getting a trademark or intellectual property, protecting yourself? Like, what are the things that you talk to your business owners so that they're aware of it, whether they decide to do the trademark or intellectual property right away or not? It's kind of, you're putting it into their heads, you're educating them. So what are the things that you see or you talk about?
So I think the educational piece is really important. And, if money were no object, I probably would focus all my time on education and providing free resources. That's definitely a goal I have, to build out more educational resources. So what I would love any small business or someone who's planning to possibly open a business is think about the strategic pieces that you want in place. We live in the internet age where there are excellent resources online. You can go to the USPTO website and they have a lot of user-friendly resources and videos. So I would say start thinking about how that piece comes into your business. Because as you said, when you're a new business owner, you're trying to prioritize your obligations.
Absolutely.
Cash flow and
the
other pieces that you're putting together at one time. So I would say start with the education and at least be aware, bring awareness to where IP comes in. And ask questions. If someone were to have an IP question, if they want to reach out to me on social media, I'm happy to hear from them. I love starting the conversation. And you can go on YouTube, you can find videos. There are so many ways to get involved. So would recommend that as the first piece. And I also want to know when I speak to business owners, what is your vision? Because if this is your hobby, that's great, but maybe you're not ready to invest in certain costs. But if this is a business that you're trying to build and you're looking into the future, then it's a different conversation.
And do you find from where it's come, prior to the digital world, prior to the internet, everything was, by paper and physical. Do you find it more challenging for small business owners, even if they have their trademark or their intellectual property protected, dealing with that with social media? In particular, there's a lot of people out there that like to create fake accounts or take fake information. And do you find that challenging for your women entrepreneurs that you deal with? And what do you tell them or how do you help them through that?
So one of the benefits I see is that if a business owner, for example, yourself, you have your trademark, if you were to come across someone else who was essentially copying you or even like not even trying to hide that they're copying you,
right?
That happens as well. Let's say you are on Instagram, you can contact the social media platform and report it. And there are instances where business owners have had their accounts shut down, sometimes for months at a time. So a person might unintentionally do something that was infringing. The business owner could report it and your account can be taken down. So there are ways to get a sort of quick temporary resolution, short of litigation, which is a whole separate issue. But I do find that if you have a trademark and you find someone is infringing, let's say that was unintentional, you can reach out to that person and say, you may not be aware that I hold the trademark to this. And I'm requesting that you take down this content and you stop using this content. And a reputable business will stop.
Right. Very true. Very true. They'll understand that, oh my gosh, I didn't mean to do this. And I guess people need to understand, like, my words, your financial maven, I had trademark for particular area with education and empowerment. But I also have a logo. And I guess those are things that can also be copyrighted or trademark. Is that correct?
That is correct. So a logo actually qualifies for both. So you can trademark a logo and often businesses will. So you might have your name, which would be, your financial maven as a word. Then if you have a specific logo, you can trademark the logo. But certain trademarks are very artistic, and that could qualify for copyright protection. And so that's a discussion. If a potential client had those concerns, we can certainly talk about it. And I just think building the portfolio of your IP is something really important to invest in. And if you're not ready to invest, at least start thinking about it.
Very true. Very true. I mean, that's something, like I said, I went back through and I had to update my trademark because I had become your financial maven. I had become an LLC, partly because of this podcast when I had started. And I wanted to really give more onus to what I do than just what my original business was, my maiden name and my last name, Mittman Besnoff Agency. And I know in the state of Pennsylvania, you don't need to get like a fictitious name for that. It doesn't need to be registered, things like that. But I wanted to make it more official. And I guess from my perspective, I wanted to protect the things that I do as well. And it's still a learning process. So, you have your clients, your one-on-ones. Do you find that you're coming across people that come to you when it's a little too late, or are you trying to reach them before it gets to that point?
So ideally, you want to start this early as a business owner. Even if you're pre-launch, ideally you have awareness and you're looking into, is what I'm trying to protect even available? Because you don't invest the time and sometimes a lot of resources, financial, go into something that you can't actually protect. And so, unfortunately, there are situations where people come to me and say, I have this name, or I've spent a lot of money building my branding, and they run into issues. And it's a difficult conversation to say to someone, you're in a rebrand situation. It's a business interruption. It's not something that they're necessarily expecting from a time and an expense standpoint. And if you have built goodwill and customers know you by your certain branding, to have to transition to something new is a whole process.
Absolutely is. And I think small business owners, to a degree, not just from the trademark side or the litigation side, that rebranding. And I've gone through a little bit of that. I've been in business almost 11 years and I've had to rebrand a bit. And I'm shifting a little bit of what I do now with my workload. I work now more with small business owners, entrepreneurs. I'm excited to have you here because this is something we need to talk about and plan for. Hey, it's time for a money break. Welcome back from our money break. Anything else you want to share as you're working with your clients that you come across that you find how it's important to get them to that point? They might decide from a financial aspect they can't do it now, but maybe you have a plan in place that they work on it for 6 months from now. And also, and correct me if I'm wrong, the trademark process could take 6 months to a year to complete, if not longer. Is that correct?
That is correct. It can take a lot longer. So currently, applications that are filed, let's say today, you're looking at an 8, possibly a 9-month wait before an examining attorney in the trademark office is even reviewing your file. And so we do live in an age of instant or near instant gratification, and it can be very challenging to wait for a result like that. And just having eyes on your application doesn't mean that you've got the green light to go through.
Right. Like if you could go through the steps, I know the steps just because I just went through it, but like what are the steps if someone comes to you and says, I would like to go ahead and get this trademarked? Like you said, yeah, you fill out the application and maybe one set of eyes looks at it, but there's actually like a whole process before it becomes official.
That's very true. So the process is I always start with a complimentary consultation, and it's really a way for the potential client to come to me and talk about their vision. And because strategy is really based around what your goals are and also the stage of your business and the type of application you're going to apply for. So if you are pre-launch or you're a business that's going to launch, let's say, a new product, you would have one type of application versus if you've already started your business and you already have commercial traction, that's another type. And so you have to be careful with your application because the government filing fees are non-refundable.
Very true. And they're not cheap. We're going to be honest here, right? This is not cheap, but I will tell my listeners that it is a business expense. So don't think you can't take that as an expense for your business because it is.
It is. And I always encourage them, if you have a CPA or someone helping you to understand the financial piece, talk to them how this is a business expense.
Absolutely. Absolutely agree with that.
And so to me, investing in a trademark is like investing in a CPA. We can't be experts of everything that we're doing in our business. And you want to go to someone who is working on this on a regular basis and knows
Absolutely.
the landscape.
I agree with you on that. You need to do your due diligence when you hire someone to help you work with this.
You do. And so what I do is I have this consultation and we talk about the vision. And then we get to what's called the clearance stage. And a good way to think about this is an X-ray. So I went to the doctor yesterday for a diagnostic checkup. And so we're kind of doing a checkup on your name or your logo. What we're doing is we're doing a comprehensive search. And this is more than a Google search because sometimes people think a Google search is the same thing to clear their name and see if it's available. But this is deeper. We're looking across the United States, state information, federal information. We're looking at social media, and we're trying to determine what potential issues are out there for what you're trying to do. And we're going to flag those issues, and we're going to put them into a legal opinion letter and tell you the light is looking green. This looks good for you. Maybe there's some issues. It's a yellow. And maybe, this is actually a situation where you need to stop it and really think about this because I don't want someone applying for an application, wasting the time, spending the money only to get a rejection. And some of those we can issue spot very early. So that's the heavy lifting. It's very important to do that before you file the application.
And the trademark is really at the federal level. Is there something when you're doing that with the state level? Like I know in Pennsylvania, if you have a fictitious name, you need to register that with the state. And there's a whole process with that as well. Are trademarks more just at the federal level, or is this just once you have your trademark, when you're doing all this stuff, it doesn't matter which state your business is in? Or are there specifics to particular states with regards to that?
So trademarks are valuable if you have the federal registration because, for example, you're in Pennsylvania, I'm in Florida. If there were a Florida business that did not have the trademark and you do, and let's say they want to use the exact same name or similar name, we're looking to avoid potential consumer confusion. And it doesn't have to be exactly the same. It can be similar enough to potentially cause confusion. And so the business that holds the federal trademark has the strongest rights. That business can reach out to another business in another state and say, listen, this is an issue. We're operating in the same type of market. We have the same or similar goods and services. I hold the trademark. I also have what's called senior use. I have additional rights. And so those types of things are important because in our digital landscape, there are so many eyes on us. Pennsylvania, you could have a client who is not in Pennsylvania and they're still with you. And so you just want to make sure that you have the most comprehensive protection for your hard work and for everything that you're trying to build. And that's why if your name or logo qualifies for a trademark, it's something that I would highly recommend.
So you give them the green light and say, okay, we've done all this due diligence, we file the application and then what?
And it's
right. It's waiting, right?
Then it's really hard because you go through this waiting period. So we do check in with clients periodically. We say, there are no changes. And as soon as there is a change, we let them know right away. Now, one of the things, prior to owning my own firm, I worked for other firms. And I think a common complaint that I hear out in the world is lawyers don't pay attention to our emails. We never hear from our lawyers. Right?
Sometimes in the case with CPAs too.
Yeah, so
right.
It's frustrating for the client. They want to know what's going on. And so very intentionally, when we formed the business, said we're going to prioritize client communication. We don't want to wait for someone to contact us and say what's happening. So we're on top of that. We check in and we say, hey, a new application was filed that we may need to keep an eye on. And that is a complimentary add-on that I include for my clients. It's called a watch service. So while a client's application is pending, I will watch and see if anything else is coming out that we need to be aware of, because trademarks are being filed every single day, new trademarks.
And just so I remember, it's uspto.gov is the website. And in that watch service, I know like when I got my attorney who would send me the information, there's like a link that I could log in and check myself. Now, a lot of it is legalese or just processing that, okay, I don't really understand it. But I think it's great that you also provide that because, yeah, you could go onto that website and be like, what
am I looking at?
What am I looking at? Yeah.
And I think that's the important thing, which is take the mystery out of the process, because that's where education is valuable. You're trying to do something that's beneficial for your business. There shouldn't be that extra layer of what am I looking at and what does this even mean? And so I'm fully available to clients and I try to get ahead of that. I try to anticipate the common questions and we go through that process together. But ideally, your application is looked at and hopefully there are no issues, right?
Right.
Hopefully you move on to the next stage, which is called publication, if you are already using your mark in commerce. So publication means there's 30 days for anyone out there who thinks they may be harmed by your application to speak up.
And that goes everywhere across the United States, correct? Or is it only in specific areas?
No. So the publication period, anyone throughout the country could potentially come forward and say, I have an issue. So that's available. That's available for everyone to see. And so if you pass publication and you move on to registration, that's what you're really looking for. You're looking for the trademark registration, which gives you the ability to do the little R in the circle. And it's important to use that. So we also talk to clients about once you've obtained your registration, here's how you maintain it. Here's how you use it correctly in your marketing, in your online presence, because you want to do that correctly.
Okay. And I don't think I'm doing it correctly. I have to go back and check because I'm me, myself, and I, right? I'm doing this all by myself. I mean, my IT is my husband and my kids because they're all computer and engineers, whatever. But I need to go back and check and see, do I need to get the little R and then, kind of, like you said, update it? Because you want people to realize you spent the time and energy and money to have this trademark because it's yours. Like it's something you're doing.
Something you're doing. And to that point, it really lends credibility in the marketplace because now consumers can associate this is basically an authentic good. So for example, you're a service provider, but if you were producing goods, you want your clients to know every time I buy this product, there's a certain quality level that I can trust. And we do unfortunately live in an age where there are a lot of counterfeits across a lot of sectors. And so authenticity is important.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think it's important to know that this isn't just you spending the money just to get that little R, this really gives you validation and protection. I think it's important, like you said, if you're doing this for a hobby, you're an independent contractor, a gig worker on the side, and it's not at this stage in your business something that you think is going to grow, that's okay. You don't necessarily need to go through this process, but it is part of your business plan to do this and having somebody to help you go through that.
It's true. And I think about it a lot. You had an episode recently where you were speaking to someone about savings and talking to young people about the importance of savings. And I remember being young and people say, oh, you should put away this amount of money. And
Right.
you know it's a best practice. But is that enough to move the needle and have you do it, right? It doesn't always seem so exciting. It can seem challenging in the moment. So
Absolutely.
the same thing, you do have to make that intentional effort to put those protections in place if you want the benefits.
Yeah, I certainly agree. Anything that you've come across with any of your clients in particular that you think is important for other small business owners, especially women in this arena, to be aware of?
So there are a lot of stories out there which, could be surprising. Unfortunately, there will always be some bad actors out there who
Absolutely.
be testing boundaries to see what they can get away with. So that certainly exists. And so I would say if you are a trademark holder, you do have to, one, use your mark correctly and maintain your brand identity. You also have to file renewals of your registration to keep it active because you don't want to lose that registration. I did meet someone who was not aware that they needed to renew their registration and they lost their trademark. That's a difficult conversation to say, you have to start from scratch.
And that's hard as a business owner. When you're a woman, a small business owner, and you're working so hard. And it's like even in accounting and with tax, not saying you necessarily have to start all the way over, but you may have to do a lot of fixing of your books to get them correct if there's an issue, and the heartache with that.
It is a heartache because you might believe that you have a trademark that you worked hard to obtain and you spent money on acquiring, only to find out that you were not aware. And that's where the education piece comes in because you were busy running your business. You're busy having a family and living your life and all the things
Absolutely.
as solopreneurs and small entrepreneurs. And to find out, wow, I thought I had this trademark for years and actually I do not. That is something to be aware of, which is it's not a one and done. It is a process, kind of like savings is a process.
Right. You can't just put the dollar in there and, and let it go. And I was just listening to actually another podcaster in the financial world talking about retirement and talking about when you do your retirement in like a Roth IRA or a 401k or a traditional IRA, you don't just put the money in there to sit. You have to then take it and invest it. And I've heard horror stories of, in particular, women just putting their money into a retirement account and it's not growing because it's not being invested. It's like sitting in the cash account. So I think having someone like yourself, the attorney, that the person that helped you in the first place, kind of keep tabs with you as well, building that relationship, because I think it's important, like you said, to check in on that. And that's something I think business owners need to be aware of. It's not just a once and done. You need to keep checking, and not just for the trademark, your finances, your marketing, whomever you hire to help you with those things. You have to have that relationship.
It's important. And to that point, one of the values of IP is you're in the digital space. Let's say you're gaining momentum and other people reach out to you and say, hey, I'd like to do a collaboration, or I'm interested in some type of brand partnership, even be interested in acquiring you. So there's so many things that could potentially be in your landscape, and you want to be ready for those. So for example, one of my children is a teenager and she loves Stanley Cups.
They're very huge now.
And all of her classmates love it. So last night I was on Instagram and I saw Stanley has announced there's a collaboration with another clothing brand, a girl's clothing, that is very popular and expensive. And so that is a great example of bringing different customer bases together by doing a collaboration. And if you're a business that's interested in those opportunities, part of the due diligence is having your trademark. You don't
absolutely
to approach you and realize, oops, I'm a year away or more from getting a trademark. And so that's why I like to bring the education in to say, if it's part of your vision to grow, and if it's part of your vision to be open to those new opportunities, let's get you ready early so that you are poised and positioned. And the
absolutely
edge, that's important for your competitive edge.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, now I'm going, oh my goodness, now I got to go back and check. Because I did this back in the fall, I guess, or the last summer, and it's taken till about tax season for this update in the trademark. And it's not that I haven't wanted to go check on things. I've just been busy. So now I'm like, oh, I'm talking to Elizabeth. I'm like, all right, now I have to go back, go check online, check to see where things are. I mean, I think it's registered, everything's ready to go, but I now have to go back and review. And I think that's an important part too. It needs to be part of your plan every 6 months or every year, do a review. And that should include if you have the trademark, intellectual property, things like that. And I guess going back to the digital thing with intellectual property, doing a podcast, does that also fall in line for the digital things like a social media account? If you're a TikTok influencer and that's your business, are there fine lines when it comes to things like that?
So one thing that I do see with social media, especially with the younger generation, is there's a common misconception that if you build a presence online, and let's say you built this great following online with a specific handle, you've got your social media handle, maybe you also have a website, so you've got the URL, and maybe you've even taken it to the next level and you've gotten a state LLC or some kind of a registration. I can understand why someone would say, I own my name. I own my brand. I'm out there. Everyone knows it's me. But from a legal standpoint, that's not sufficient. If you want protection, you're really looking for the federal protection. Having those things associated with your name, of course, it's important, but it's not enough on its own. And so social media is very exciting. You can see a lot of organic growth with social media, which is fantastic. And there's a large entertainment value, so you can go viral. You just never know.
Yep.
Which is another reason why you want to have your bedrock, your foundation in place. And I definitely understand it may not be the most exciting part of business, but it's well worth having.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think it's the whole social influencer and the social media is kind of neat in and of itself. It's really growing. I think it's a new way, new digital age of us getting our news, getting information. But again, there's also, you have to be careful who gives you that information because you just never know, are they legitimate? But I think that is important for them to understand that if you truly are doing this as a business, you need to talk to those professionals and get that information in play because, yeah, you might use your name as your handle or whatever. You really have to look into that because I think it's important if you want to be able to protect it. And hiring someone like yourself and talking to someone about a trademark or a copyright, it's important. So I know you said, you started out with art and you went in with business and then law. Is there anything just in general that you find as you're talking to your clients that you think business owners should be aware of, when it comes to either their money or their understanding of the business structure?
Yeah, I would say an important piece of this is having a strategy. So when you're a solopreneur, your time, your attention, and your resources are being pulled in so many different directions. And so if you can speak to somebody, whether it's a trademark attorney or a trusted advisor like a CPA, and say, this is the path that I'm on currently. This is where I'd like to go. This is where I'd like to potentially grow in the future. Talk to someone who's not so close to the business as you are, because you're living and breathing at 24 hours a day. And you just want to have a sounding board to say, have I overlooked something? I know for myself, if I'm too close to something, sometimes I used to find this in school. If I wrote a paper and I looked at it for too long, I didn't feel like I was the best editor. And so I would ask someone to put a second set of eyes on it. So I would say, please reach out to someone in your network. Reach out to someone you trust and just do a gut check. That's a good place to start. Find someone to ask questions to who is a professional. So if you're a business owner and you're not sure, is a certain legal thing I'm wanting to do, whether it's a contract or whether it's to get some intellectual property protection, is this a business expense? How do I handle this on my taxes? Like, reach out to somebody because one, you're getting the education and hopefully the peace of mind, but that means a lot of empowerment. And I think having that stability in yourself and that understanding in yourself will serve every business owner well.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, I think that is one of the most important things is when you're in that grind, it's okay to take a step back and, like you said, talk to somebody. If you're not sure of where to find professionals in those particular areas or mentors, check with your local chamber, grab networking groups, go on to social media and see, can I find somebody in those areas? And do your due diligence. Interview them, have those conversations, because you want to make sure that the person you're hiring is going to do what you need them to do to help protect you.
Exactly. And I think personality fit is also important. So
I agree.
It's okay to have, let's say, 3 qualified money managers. Talk to each of them, see if their philosophy and their style gels with you, because you're building a relationship of trust. You're building a relationship that can last the duration. And so that's important because you will find a lot of qualified professionals in whatever area you're looking for. And that's the due diligence. And I enjoy working with women. I am a female, I'm a business owner. I feel like I live some of those questions and challenges myself. And so that's a real connecting point with other women. And that's why I like to serve women specifically.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I serve all kinds of clients, but I think when I work with my clients who are women and women-owned businesses, it's that passion, it's that empowerment, and it's really like you're working with each other and helping. And like I'm in two different chambers here in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and they both have within their chambers these women's groups. And I try to get to those networking meetings. I can't always make it. And you just sit there and you're like, I'm not alone. I'm making those connections. This is wild. So absolutely. Elizabeth, this has been awesome. Like, I just feel like we've learned a little bit more. Where can we find you?
Sure. So I'm on social media. I'm on LinkedIn at Brand Builder Legal. I'm also on LinkedIn, Elizabeth Milian, Brand Builder Legal as well. And I'm on Facebook, Brand Builder Legal. And so I love hearing from people and happy to help anyone and answer questions.
I love that. And we'll make sure in the podcast notes when I get the episode out, I'll have links to that so that anybody has any questions, they can direct them to you, because this is not an area that I am an expert in, but I'd love to be able to share that with my listeners. So Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Hey, it's your financial maven, and I want to hear from you. Feel free to leave me your insights and money stories or questions that you may have about money. You can visit www.yourfinancialmavenpodcast.com and click on the I Want to Hear From You tab. I can't wait to hear what you have to say about money. The purpose of this podcast is to provide general information on the subjects discussed. It is for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. You should consult your CPA, accountant, or tax professional for all of your specific financial needs or situations. Your Financial Maven is hosted and produced by Samantha M. Besnoff, CPA, and Your Financial Maven, LLC. Editing is done by Chris Zarnock of KM Zen Creative. Music is written, composed, and performed by Daniel Shore.